Welcome in to CBS Sports HQ. It is time for Expert Picks presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino alongside Chris Hassel, Kyle Long, Pete Prisco.
What? What's the matter?
Yeah, what are you doing over there?
I don't want to see the rest.
Another bad week for you?
Oh, I'm in a rut, man. It's bad.
Yeah, and we have the receipts.
It's
we have
bad.
the graphic to prove
and
it.
you know what? He comes in on Monday morning and he comes right to Jack to find out what his picks record
I like
is.
a good recap.
Well, you like
Keyword good recap.
Well, you're having a good one.
Well, let's set up the games that we have for you this week, and then we'll show you the records that these guys have. We got a full slate this week. No buys. It'll start Thursday night. Vikings and Rams. No overseas games this week either. And no Monday night double dipper. This is like just your regular.
This is the best week of football that's ever happened.
Let's go.
It's like week one. Right?
Oh, Pete. 5-11.
Oh.
Meantime, Kyle goes 9-7 and hits another best bet. 6-1 in best bets.
That's why they call it the best, Chris. That's why they call it the best bet.
Well, you know, my best bet, I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm in the green room, and we see Kirk Cousins throw an interception after interception with a chance to get the over, and it just heightened my disdain for the way he plays in key games.
Let's start with Thursday night football this week. It's Kirk's former team, the Minnesota Vikings, coming off their first loss, a 3-point favorite in L.A. against the Rams, who should have Cooper Kupp back in the lineup for the first time since week 2.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp back in the lineup, and I actually heard some whispers about him maybe being off the team here this morning on Twitter. It's like
traded?
Yesterday, some trade talk, but I think with the amount he's owed, he's going to be needed in that Rams locker room, and they're going to need him against the Vikings. This Vikings team coming off a loss, a short week. I think the Minnesota Vikings end up pulling it out. There's just too much on that roster to go drop 2 in a row.
Yeah, it's tough to go out on a short week, particularly after you lost a tough game last week, and now you go back out in a short week. It's a challenge, but they're the much better team. After watching the Rams last week, I was concerned about the way they played on offense. Even if they get Cooper Kupp back, they still have some issues. I think the Vikings will be able to shut them down. I'll take the Vikings.
Rams won last week, though.
Yeah, but they didn't look good on offense. Against the Raiders team, it's not very good.
So in this Sunday night matchup, we have the Cowboys and the Niners. It's not like your grandparents' Cowboys and Niners matchup, that it's, you know, this great rivalry and they're looking really great. Cowboys are barely 500. They are right at 500. The Niners are not at 500. They are favored by 4.5. But Pete, do you like the Niners to cover that number? Despite all of the injuries that we've seen, whether it's, you know, Debo being hospitalized, Kittle with the foot, Ayuk is out, and so on and so on.
So you're talking about like the 90s Cowboys 49ers games, the grandparent, like when I was in my 30s. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. I was trying to. My grandparents were watching that game in the 90s. Okay.
I'm kidding.
Pete,
But
you're
right.
older than her grandparents.
Yeah, maybe I am.
No, you're not.
But by the way, those were some classics back in the day when the Niners and Cowboys would meet. The one would go to the Super Bowl. They were wars. They were great games. This is not one of them. This is a survival test. You're talking about teams that are banged up across the board. And I've never seen anything like this, what's happened to the Niners. Every single key guy is out of the lineup, in and out. Maybe some of them not coming back. Ayuk is now out for the year. It's tough. And last week we saw Brock Purdy, when he didn't have his weapons, he struggled. I think this is a spot for Dallas to go in there and cover the number and hang around in this game. I just don't like the makeup of this 49ers team right now.
You know, I disagree with you. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. And when I look at this team, the strength of their group, it's up front on both sides of the football. And for Dallas, there's question marks there with the line of scrimmage. You can't protect your quarterback. You can't stop the run. Give me the San Francisco 49ers at home. This is where you find out, with all those injuries, this is where you find out what your team is made of, what that depth of the roster looks like. I think the San Francisco 49ers have a tough team. They've been built the right way. Obviously, they've been unlucky with injuries, but I got the Niners this week.
You know, I said last week, we know about the 49ers defense. They had to step up. They didn't really. So this has to be a game where they...
I love that guy, Mustafa. I know he got trucked by my buddy Patrick Mahomes, but he was playing at a different level of speed than everybody else on the football field. It's kind of like he watches Fred Warner on tape and says, how can I match that energy? We saw a little bit of that last game.
As of right now, neither one of these teams would be in the playoffs. Do one of these teams or both miss, you think, Pete?
If the 49ers get some guys back, they'll be in the mix. I mean, look, that division's wide open. So is the other one. I mean, the Cowboys aren't out of it either. So to answer your question, I'd say they both still have a chance to get to the postseason.
Yeah, the Niners are the team out of those two teams that I think could have a shot if they get healthy. They can become a house really quick.
Yeah, only a game behind the Seattle Seahawks in that division. Let's go to Giants-Steelers, Monday Night Football. Look, the total here is 36.5. Russ was cooking in his first game.
Sky? What is that up there in the sky?
That's a moon!
It's a moonball! Another one one.
They put up 37 themselves in Russ's first start for the Steelers.
Yeah, well, they got a pick down to the inch line, and he scored a touchdown, so that's not on the offense either. We got to slow the roll on Russ, okay? He was awful for a quarter and a half. He threw a couple moon balls up that Pickens made plays on. Then he kind of settled in and did some good things. And this is a team that's not very good he's facing here, so he should play well in this one as well. I think the Giants are a mess. You know, without Andrew Thomas on that offensive line, whoa, they were pressured the entire game. I think the Steelers have to be just licking their lips and ready to go attack them, and they will. I think the Steelers cover this number, and maybe not because of Russell Wilson, by the way.
Yeah, I think that defensive front for the Steelers, they're going to just be causing havoc all day for that New York Giants front. You talked about Andrew Thomas being out, and I kind of feel bad for Daniel Jones. He had a couple weeks where it was like, hey, look, come on, Daniel's doing pretty good. And then his best protector goes down. They get blown out last week. So I look for the Steelers, who got some momentum, to continue that momentum. We might not see as many of those deep shots to George Pickens because somebody will be there to blanket, help out that cornerback. But I do like the Steelers. Their defense will carry them to a win.
I figured I could get you going on the alarm, and this would be appropriate for you. You know why?
This is a don't touch situation.
Well, you know why? Because Andrew Thomas was out of the lineup, but Malik Neighbors was in the lineup, and the offense was worse.
Yeah.
That goes to your point.
O-line
Big
matters.
Get big people.
By the way, Chris, we have established that the once quarterback alarm has now transitioned into the O-line alarm.
Oh, he's an offensive line.
He's a defender.
He just loves this.
He's a defender.
I have inherited beef that Brady Quinn and Pete had on this very.
You know what it is, too.
Also, Pete loves to hate on offensive linemen.
No, I love offensive linemen.
No, we used to have a segment on this very program called the Spinning Top of the Week.
Yes, we did.
Stop.
Where Pete would highlight an offensive lineman who had his worst game of the year.
And you remember who retired that award by the end of the year?
Who?
He won it a couple times that year and was the winner. Michael Jordan.
Yeah, right.
And he's now starting at left guard for the New England Patriots.
That's no good. You don't want to be on that list.
Pushing the Pile every single weekday on CBS Sports HQ and wherever you find your podcasts. Scan that QR code. It'll take you there. Pete's on every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Lige was on today. What'd you guys talk about today?
Great. Today we did a little mailbag. We talked about comeback player of the year criteria. It was
Who's that? Who's comeback player of the year right now?
That was the debate. You're going to have to tune in to find out, Haas.
Okay.
That's quite the tease. All right, we're going to continue to pick every single game against the spread here on HQ. We're talking about the Eagles and the Bengals, both teams riding a 2-game win streak. We're going to break it down with Pete and Kyle coming up right here on HQ. All right, back here on HQ, we are continuing expert picks presented by FanDuel. Checking out the 1 o'clock slate, of course, we have the Browns and the Ravens in a classic AFC North matchup, and it's going to be Jameis Winston under center there for Cleveland. We have the Colts and the Texans. The Colts only one game out of the lead in the AFC South, but we know the Anthony Richardson experience is very erratic, so we'll have to see what happens there. Jets, Patriots, Eagles, Bengals, and then at 4:25 Eastern, we have Kyle's Bears taking on the Commanders, Panthers and the Broncos, and the Chiefs taking on the Raiders as they try to remain the only undefeated team in the NFL.
Whoa.
Oh, Pete! There you are.
There it was.
Spinning top of the week.
Resurrected.
Yeah.
That was good. A good little graphic.
That's what our graphic was.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring it back. I don't know. I feel I forgot what that looked like. I haven't seen it in years.
It was so cruel, wasn't it, Chris?
It was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the best things we ever did.
I enjoyed it.
You know, some people had fun with that. Tommy Tran was like spinning around in his chair. It was like a whole bit. We're gonna pick some games here in the 1 o'clock window, starting with the Eagles and the Bengals. Both of these teams have won 2 straight, and it looks like the Bengals, their offense is coming into form. The defense has a lot of question marks there, and then on the other side with the Eagles, we certainly saw what Saquon means to this offense. Kyle, Bengals are favored by 2.5, looking for their first home win. Where are you at on this matchup? Can Joe Burrow lead the Bengals to a win at home for the first time this season?
Look, I haven't given up on this Bengals team all year. We've sat at the desk and said that Joe Burrow and that offense, they can win at any given time. You know, if it becomes a track meet and the other team has to match production, I think that's a tough ask for most teams offensively. But when I look at this Philadelphia Eagles team with what they have with Saquon Barkley, they can control the tempo of the football game. He neared his career high in yards last week. And I think you can mitigate some of the risks you have with Jalen Hurts at quarterback by continuing to hand the football to Saquon Barkley. If that's their game plan, it's going to put a lot of stress on the interior defensive line of that Cincinnati Bengals group. I love the Eagles in this spot. It's the only one where I kind of scratch my head a little bit about it. I just have a feeling Saquon Barkley's going to eat greedy in this game.
Yeah, but I think the Bengals have made strides on defense the last couple of weeks, and that's important for them because we saw early in the season they were awful on defense, and it puts so much pressure on the offense to do things, and that offense can do it, and I think they will do it. Look, the Eagles got all over Daniel Jones last week. I think they'll be better protected here. I think Joe Burrow will be able to have his shots down the field. I'll take the Bengals at home. I know they've struggled at home, but I'm going to take them in this one.
There are 4 spreads this week that are 2-score spreads, and our next game is one of them. The Ravens minus 9.5 in Cleveland against the Browns, who will be starting Jameis Winston this week, Pete.
Yeah, and look, Jameis Winston cannot be any worse than what Deshaun Watson has been. He just can't be. And you know, and he makes a lot less money, too, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. It's a bad situation with Deshaun Watson. You never want to see a guy get hurt, but Jameis Winston might end up being a better quarterback. I probably would have benched Deshaun Watson. I don't think they were allowed to bench Deshaun Watson at the time. They were forced to play him. Now Winston plays, and I think that's a good thing for the Browns. But the Ravens are on a run right now on offense, and I just can't imagine anybody slowing down that group. This is back-to-back road games on a short week. Tough to do, but I really think that the Ravens offense is going to be tough to stop, and I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
For the guys in that Browns locker room, I'm really happy that you're going to have a quarterback out there that'll give you a chance to look like an NFL offense. For the guys in the other locker room, keep doing what you're doing. You are a house. I talked about the Niners. If they got healthy, they could be a house. They could end up looking like that Ravens team. They can beat you a number of different ways. Lamar is playing the best football I've ever seen him play. This is a 2-time MVP. You now add Derrick Henry to the backfield. This team can beat you any number of ways. The defense is going to have to step up big and just put out that flame that they just sparked there with Jameis Winston. I got the Ravens by 2 scores.
By the way, the Ravens defense is not playing well either, which is a surprise, but the offense has been so good it hasn't really mattered. At some point it might matter. They got to pick up their play a little bit too.
So Pete, I'm wondering, Jameis Winston, does not fall into the you are what you are backup
He's
quarterback.
Been a starter.
He's been
a starter
out
in the
of
league.
that.
Yeah, he's out of that.
Okay, let's talk about the Colts and the Texans. I just had to make sure.
You got to clear that up.
Yeah, we had to make sure there's a difference between a Gardner Minshew and a Jameis Winston. Colts and the Texans. The Colts are only 1 game behind the Texans in the AFC South, but it's just been ugly to get there at 4-3 for Indy. Watching Anthony Richardson has been tough. Do you like the Texans to cover this number, Kyle?
I love the Texans to cover this number if it's Anthony Richardson at the quarterback position. And you know, I've talked at length on Pushing the Pile about I think Joe Flacco is the better option. Anthony Richardson will progress as a quarterback on the bench behind Joe Flacco. But with the Houston Texans, they've got some issues too. They got to figure out a way to get this offense going. C.J. Stroud struggled last week, but I think they do have a get-right game against the Indianapolis Colts this week. Give me the Texans.
You know why C.J. Stroud struggled last week? Because of the offensive line.
Good defense.
The offensive line has been a problem for the Texans. In fact, there was talk that they need to go out and make a move to get somebody to improve that offensive line. And I think that shows up on a weekly basis. The problem is the Colts aren't great on defense, and that's been their issue as well. And Anthony Richardson is so erratic. If he doesn't scramble, doesn't make a big play, doesn't throw one down the field, he's not going to move the football. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Texans here. I think they get home and get right.
Texans just lost at the buzzer to the Packers in Green Bay. Green Bay has won 3 straight now, Pete. That's your Super Bowl pick, taking on your favorite team. You got your Jags pom-poms out. You're not ready to bury them yet, but here we go. What do you say? The line's 4.5.
They're not buried yet, but they'll be buried after Sunday. Jacksonville will be buried after Sunday. They cannot stop this pass offense. I cannot imagine them with the league's worst pass defense slowing down Jordan Love and those receivers. And by the way, it will be a home game for the Green Bay Packers. There will be more Packers fans, I think, or as many as there are Jaguar fans in those stands. And because they do that everywhere. They go to Tampa, they do the same thing. The Packers fans show up.
Snowbirds.
They will show up. They will show up here. And I think this is going to be one of those spots where Jacksonville gets back to being a bad football team again because they aren't a very good team, and they're going to start making changes and start selling off pieces after this one.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville invested so much into this offense, bringing pieces in to help Trevor Lawrence, who is obviously such an expensive piece for that group. And when you look at what's lacking, it's just they are disconnected offensively. And
they started getting it going offensively.
Some weeks you see them look like a team that you wish that would show up every week. And then you look across the sideline, and it's Jordan Love, and it's this fountain of youth with the receiver position. It's Matt LaFleur able to get all these guys the football. I love the Packers in this spot. And to your point, it's going to be another home game. These Midwest teams, they travel really well to the warm states. Expect there to be a lot of yellow and green in the stands.
By the way, the problem is the defense. defense. The defense is terrible. And they've drafted and used so many assets on that side of the ball, and they brought in a new defensive coordinator who rotates, I say it all the time, he rotates players like they're a hockey team. It's ridiculous. They're not good. Jordan Love will have a field day on Sunday.
So if the Jags do lose, is this Doug Peterson's last game as the head coach of the Jags?
That's not what Shad Khan does. He will not fire
What's he going to do? He's going to trade some pieces before the deadline?
Well, when you're the general manager and you're trying to save your own butt, what do? You trade pieces for next year so you think you're going to be using them. Look, it's not my problem. I'll get you draft picks. It's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, we had talked about guys like Cam or Christian Kirk that could potentially be on the trading block there for Jacksonville. Let's talk about the Titans and the Lions. The Titans somehow might be worse, arguably worse than the Jags there in the AFC South. D-Hop is no longer there. He is going to be with Kansas City. Titans-Lions here. It's another huge spread, 10.5-point favorites. That's what Detroit is. Pete, is that too big or is that justifiable?
It's justifiable. And I thought last week the Titans would go up there no matter who played quarterback and hang around in the game with the Bills, and they did for a while, but they're just so limited on what they're doing offensively. And now you move Hopkins, well, he wasn't doing anything anyways, but you move Hopkins out of the lineup and now puts more pressure on Ridley. I don't see them keeping up. And look, there are issues on that Detroit defense now. They need to get a pass rusher. But I can't see them keeping up. I like the Lions.
I like the Lions offensively. Their line of scrimmage is as dominant as there is in the National Football League. And the conversation with Aiden Hutchinson being out, how can Aaron Glenn generate pressure? Well, against a Titans offense, which is a bit anemic at times, you can find ways to throw in some of these pressures, see how they work. You can afford to do it against this Tennessee team. That's why the spread's so big. Give me the Detroit Lions in this one. And I do think they come up with some really creative ways to get after the quarterback.
We're really chalky.
We are.
Very chalky.
Chalky. Let's go to the Falcons and Bucks, and Tampa is reeling right now. No Mike Evans for at least the next 3 games. Chris Godwin is done for the season, and this is a game for first place in the division with Atlanta, the road favorite there in Tampa, Pete.
Well, so let's see. It's for first place in the division. It's a big game then, right?
It is a big game.
It is a big game then. That means that Kirk Cousins in a big game. We're going to start talking about that narrative. And I know the receivers are down for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's a problem because Chris Godwin was having an amazing year. And, you know, losing Mike Evans, that deep ball down the field goes out of the offense as well. But I think they'll be able to manufacture offense. I think Jalen McMillan, a guy I really love, he's back healthy again. I think he steps up and does some things. They can run the ball. The Falcons aren't great on defense either. And I think what we saw from Tampa Bay's defense on Monday night was awful. They're better than that. And that tells you how good that Ravens offense is. I think they regroup. I'll take the Bucs.
You know what? I think there really is something to be said for having success against a team in your division and then going to play them again later in the season. We've kind of got your number a little bit. And you add to that the 2 injuries to the offensive side of the ball for Tampa Bay. And honestly, I feel terrible for Baker Mayfield because you know how much I love watching Baker. Those 2 receivers are a huge part of that offense. I love Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons in this spot. I mean, they've shown me that they can do it against this group. Let's go in their trap now and make it our trap.
The Bucs should have beat him the first time.
Well, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
They gave up 500 yards to Kirk Cousins.
They should have beat him the first time.
No, they didn't.
I know.
But now they're going to beat him again.
No. That'll be one you're getting wrong.
I'll call you on Sunday.
Call me.
Let's talk about the Cardinals and the Dolphins. A big game for Miami because Tua is slated to come back. He's missed the past 4 games because he's been dealing with that concussion. A short week for Arizona, but this is a team that, even though they're below 500, they're still in the division, Pete. The
short week on a long trip for an early game. The schedule maker doesn't like the Arizona Cardinals very much. I mean, that's a brutal trip. I don't look, Tua's playing. That's a good thing for the Miami Dolphins. It changes the entire feel of the offense and the feel of this team. I think this is a bad spot for the Arizona Cardinals. They played tough on defense Monday night and did something. They gave up a lot of yards, but they kind of let them move down the field and then stopped them. I think this is a bad spot for them. I'll take the Dolphins in this
Remember
spot.
Bobby Boucher's coach in The Water Boy? He had his little playbook, and then when he got his playbook taken, he was like stomping around in high heels in the kitchen, pissed that he doesn't have his playbook anymore. That's kind of what Mike McDaniel has reminded me of the last few weeks. Without his guy, Tua Tagovailoa, who's a great processor, distributor of the football, it's going to be a huge boost to get him back. I want to know if Mike McDaniel is ready to be back. Is he ready to call a confident game plan with the quarterback in there? Give me the Cardinals. I love watching Connor run wild last week. Kyler Murray is a tough guy to wrangle up. So give me the Cardinals in this one.
Wow. bucking the trend of the long
Let's go,
trip.
baby.
There you
With
go.
a water boy rep. I'm Bobby Boucher. Hey, let's go to a team that Pete thinks is going to turn things around because of the schedule, and it's the New York Jets. Look, they've made all these big moves, firing the head coach, changing the offensive play caller, trading for Davante Adams. Now the schedule kind of turns here. They're 7-point favorites in New England, Pete.
Yeah, and if you watched that game last week, you know what the problem in large part was? Aaron Rodgers. He's not throwing well in the middle of the field, and he's got to get back to being who he is in the middle of the field. He double clutched a couple times. That's not who he is. This is a perfect spot for them. If you watch New England, I watched that game on tape the other day, they were awful. And Jacksonville really can't stop anybody, and they stopped them after the first quarter. And so I think this is going to be a good spot for the Jets defense to get back on track. It would be a good spot for Rodgers to get back on track. And you do look at that schedule. The schedule really softens up for the Jets going forward in the next 6, 7 weeks. They will get back into playoff contention.
Yeah, I mean, the connection with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, we thought it was going to be, like off the bus. They were going to be connected in unison. And we saw a few of those quick games, the slant game. It was like 3 of the first times that we saw Davante and Aaron try to connect. It wasn't necessarily great. So I expect them to be a lot better this week. And I expect Garrett Wilson to have a big week because they're going to have to allocate some resources to Big 17 or whatever the hell Davante Adams is wearing for the Jets. But they're going to allocate resources there. I think Garrett Wilson has a big one. Give me the Jets.
Okay, they've got the Texans after that, then Cardinals, Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, Jags, Rams. So
they're going to make a run. They're going to make a run.
Well,
their division's over, by the way.
now.
The division that's done, but they're going to be in the playoff mix.
Here's the big slate on CBS.
He
did it. He did it.
I love it.
4 games in the early window.
I can't believe it took this long.
Including that, well, you took all the other stuff, Jacqueline, so you finally let me in.
Wow, all right.
4:25 Eastern. Man, we're going to pick that Bears-Commanders game next. I hope Jaden Daniels plays.
I bet you do.
So this is the big one here. It's supposed to be number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. A couple of teams that are in playoff position right now. But will Jaden Daniels play against the Bears? Expert picks presented by FanDuel, picking every NFL game against the spread as we hit the late afternoon slate, which gives us 5 games, 3 of them on CBS, including Bears road favorites at the Commanders because Jaden Daniels might not be able to play in that game. That's the one we're going to hit first, okay? Bears-Commanders, CBS flexed into this game because we wanted to see this matchup. And still, even without Daniels, it's going to be a good game. But if it's not him, it's Marcus Mariota. What do you guys think?
Yeah, don't sleep on my former teammate, Marcus Mariota, because when he came out of the NFL draft, this is a guy who had a lot of the same skill sets that Jaden Daniels has. Obviously, Jaden has reached the ceiling in terms of mobility, deep ball throwing. So for a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, he can kind of take Marcus, who's a veteran player, really experienced, and plug him right in. He looked great last week. I expect the Commanders not to miss a beat offensively. Obviously, they're not going to be run at the same revs as they are with Jaden Daniels, but that offense won't look anemic like some of the other teams we've talked about. I still love the Bears in this game, and it comes down to the defense. Defense travels really well. The Bears have run the ball effectively. Caleb's gotten better every single week. I expect him to go out and continue that progression as a quarterback.
I'm with you. I'm taking the Bears as well. I just think their defense...
Wait a second, though. If Daniels
I'm taking him either way. I'm taking him either way.
Either way? You too?
I'm taking Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, in large part because I think the Washington defense has some issues still that show up. And they don't show up against Carolina, but nobody's defense has issues against Carolina. So I do think they'll show up. And they're coming off a bye, the Bears. They're going to be rested. I think this is a great spot for them. Even if Mariota... He
talks about young and old. That Bears team is the perfect combination of young and old.
Yeah, they have a good combination of both of them. And I think
it's like us. We've got the young people here and the old guy over there.
Buddy cops over here.
You're not young anymore. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah,
Welcome to old age, buddy. Welcome to old age, buddy. So I'll take the Chicago Bears. I just think it's a great spot for them. You look at you, you're happy. You're all happy.
I love that for you.
They're not making the playoffs, but the next year.
You got them starting 5-2 and not making the playoffs?
No, next year. I told you that last year.
Anyway. I don't trust this picks.
Chris, basically, Pete was saying that, you were watching the Cowboys and the Niners in the 90s.
I was. I remember those games.
That's what Pete's trying to say. I'm going to try to do my best Chris Hassel impression at 4:25 on CBS. Dang, I'm literally What a flop. Panthers-Broncos, by the way. And the Broncos...
Oh, Amanda Guerra's on this game.
She is. Broncos would be a wild card team right now, which is crazy when you're saying that out loud, considering, I mean, it's been a little bit of an up and down season for Bo Nix, Kyle.
Yeah, it's been an up and down season for Bo Nix, but he's not doing anything to lose this football team games. And when I look at the game plan they had in New Orleans, it was, we're going to give the ball to our running back in the first half. We're going to establish our MO and our identity early in the game. That's what I think they do again against this Carolina team. I just think there's too much talent on that Broncos group. I look at McGlinchey back in the lineup, Quinn Miners. That's a really good tandem on the right side. They can do what they want, run it at will with the Broncos. And that defense, they're going to be suffocating that Panthers offense. Give me the Broncos at home in this one.
Snuck in a couple offensive linemen in that little analysis. Did you see that?
Quinn Miners dreadlocks, by the way.
He's a good player.
Crazy.
He's a good player. They will run the ball. And Carolina's offense, you know, remember the Andy Dalton bump? It's kind of gone away.
Time to put Bryce back in, Pete?
Yeah, no. It's never time to put him back in, but it's over. It's over for him. But I think
we're never going to see Bryce Young at quarterback ever again for the Panthers.
You might, maybe at the end of the year, you'll see him. We've seen him come in and mop up duty.
Yeah.
He's come in, so he'll do that.
Yeah.
But their offense is bad right now. Their defense is probably even worse. And I think this is a good spot for Bo Nix to do some things in this game. We're starting to see more and more of Bo Nix. So he's scrambling out of the pocket. He's keeping his head up. He's making some plays. He's inconsistent. He's erratic. He missed some throws early in that game last week. But I think he's getting more comfortable with what Sean Payton wants them to do, and I think they'll play well here. I'll take the Broncos.
This is like we talked about the Lions versus the Titans, and I thought it was a good spot for their DC to take some chances with pressures. This is the week for Bo Nix to try to extend that ball down the field and kind of shut up some of the haters about, hey, he can't drive it down the football field.
Another game at 4:25 Eastern on CBS is the unbeaten Chiefs, the only remaining unbeaten team in the league, -9.5 in Vegas against the Raiders. Chiefs' last loss came late last regular season against the Raiders. Not that that really matters in this one.
They got run on in that game. Bad. Remember, they ran it right down their throat. That didn't happen in here. This Raiders team, with the way they're constructed right now, and we know who's back in at quarterback, so, you know, he's benched.
Your boy?
He's benched. He's back in. He's not very good. And
the Minshew bump this week.
The Minshew bump.
You're
not getting the
backup quarterback in the league.
This year, by the way, when we look back on this year and we see that he went to Baltimore and beat the Ravens, we're going to look back on this in December and go, how the hell did that ever happen, by the way?
I remember this offseason, there was some video footage from the Raiders practice facility, and they had a little Kermit doll that had a Patrick Mahomes haircut, and they were all making
Oh, no.
They were making fun of him. You remember this?
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing, man? This is the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, who, to your point, were beat by the Las Vegas Raiders last time they went out. Well, to your point, it's not the same team. So I expect Andy Reid and this Kansas City Chiefs football team to go dominate the Raiders, and I think there's no question about it. 9.5, the spread's not big enough, in my opinion.
I might get a little Kyle Long doll. He just interrupted me before I made my pick.
It pissed me off. It really pissed me off.
What kind of Muppet would he be?
I don't know.
Bald Muppet.
A bald one, just like I would be.
Animal? I think he'd be animal.
2 bald Muppets.
So say it, Chiefs. You got the Chiefs.
I got the Chiefs as well.
Wait, so is it?
But did you hear my pick?
Is it Aiden O'Connell, the last quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes?
Was it AOC last year, Pete?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
It won't be AOC this week. Not playing.
Bills, Seahawks, 4:05 Eastern Time. A battle between division leaders here, both coming off of great games. Pete, the Bills are favored by 3. What do you like?
I like Buffalo. I think they're going to go. It's a tough trip. It's a long trip, and you know how those can affect you. But the Seattle defense isn't very good. I think the Buffalo offense will get it cranked up here. We started seeing Cooper do his thing a little bit, even though he didn't really know the offense last week. You saw him lining him up a couple different times. They're going to be much better this time around. This will be loose. This is going to be high scoring. I'm going to take the Bills. Yes, it will be loose.
It's going to be loose. And I always love being a Midwest or an East Coast team traveling west. There's something about getting a change in temperature, not as much humidity. I think it'll be really nice for the Bills. Josh Allen playing a great brand of football, taking care of the ball. And I love the Bills in this spot. I really do. The Seahawks had a big win last week. They had to travel a long ways, come back home. I just don't know if they have it 2 weeks in a row.
I'm expecting you to go. And we got a front coming in to Seattle.
Yeah, if you look here, you'll notice the cumulonimbus rolling into Pike Place Market. Yeah.
Let's go down to Los Angeles, where the Chargers are hosting the Saints. Both of these teams started 2-0 this season. That was a long time ago. Combined since then, they're 1-8, and the Saints haven't won at all.
Justin Herbert threw for 350 yards last week to a few guys that I think we would have a trouble naming right here at the table. I give a tremendous amount of credit to Jim Harbaugh and that offense. Obviously, they wanted to pound the rock early in the season, but they showed their hand. They let Justin flex his muscles a little bit. I would hope to see them get some help at the receiver position, but in this one, I'm going to go with the Chargers. And you know what? I don't even know what the spread is. I like the Chargers a lot.
7.5.
Yeah. And it's big, and it's not big enough because I'm going to take the Chargers. You know, you talk about getting back to your roots. They're going to pound it. The Saints can't stop anybody in the run game. They will run all over them. This is going to be a Harbaugh game. They will have a big day.
And Jesse Minter's defense has been really good.
Very good.
All right, this time for Pete Prisco's picks, presented by FanDuel. We're getting best bets for everyone, and the records are not just tough for you, Pete. It's tough for me as well. Kyle Long sitting at the top, 6-1. Pete Hassel, 3-4. The producer pick at 2-5. To be fair, I haven't been on the show the last couple of weeks. So
Yeah, where the hell have you been?
I don't know. They just
Your fake laryngitis that you came down with?
I don't know. It wasn't fake.
Twice.
I know Pete is saying I had fake laryngitis, but I definitely
Party
did.
laryngitis?
It was not party laryngitis. I legit lost my voice, gentlemen. We're gonna get to some best bets. Pete, kick us off.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos. I'm going to start taking a strategy where I pick against the worst team every week, kind of like Jamie does. Kind of like Jamie does with his start of the week. Whenever he finds the worst defense, we find a player playing against him. He goes that way. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go. It didn't work last week. He had Kirk Cousins. It was a flop. I'm going to take the Broncos as my best bet.
I'm going to be going with the Falcons, -2.5 against a really, really, really banged up Buccaneers team. Not just anybody. It's their 2 stars on offense. 500 yards last time for Kirk Cousins against this team. Give me the Falcons.
Big
Pete,
game.
I know you disagree with that, right?
Yeah, I like the Bucs. And
he does.
And plus, though he could get the post start of the week bump from Kirk Cousins.
Okay, man, I feel like you've just been dogging on Kirk Cousins this entire show, Pete.
In my entire life.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with Cardinals +3 against the Dolphins. I know we talked about the road trip and everything, but it's kind of a spicy pick. I feel like it doesn't matter. They're right there in the division, and I feel like I don't think Tua is going to come in after being out 4 weeks and click there on offense, so I like the Cardinals to cover.
Okay, I'm going to go with a Thursday night game. I don't feel great about this, but I have.
Way to have conviction.
This is your best bet.
That's your best bet. I don't feel good about it.
It's like a bunch of other games.
I have felt great about my last 2 picks, and they've both been horrible, including last week. I thought the 49ers would beat the Chiefs.
So you're going to zag this week.
I'm going Rams +3 against the Vikings. Cooper Kupp is back. Minnesota first loss. They might start stacking up now. What's the producer pick, Jack?
Dolphins. So on the other side of me. So the producer pick and my pick are going head to head.
We should have gotten Amanda Guerra's pick because she's the only one that's perfect this season. 1-0 from her pick last week.
By the way, I didn't feel good about. I felt great about my picks last week and went 5-11. I feel awful about these, so I'm due for a
that's
good
what I'm
week.
saying.
I'm the same way.
This is great. I love doing this every week.
Yeah.
This is fun.
But yeah, because you're
got to do.
Yeah, because you're on top. I'm 11-2 if I had a winning record.
He's got to do
picks.
He's got to do the weather after he's done here.
I got to go wake my daughter up from nap time.
Those are your best bets for Week 8 in the NFL. Full slate. Nobody on buys.